What up, y'all? Welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris. And yes, it's been a hot minute since I've uploaded a podcast episode. Let's see. Short version, just to give you the gist. I've had some things in the background and not so background that I've needed to work out. Nothing super alarming. Nothing like that's going to be like life-changing. But nonetheless, I've had some things that I've had to address, and I've had to carry out in front of me over things like podcasting and stuff like that. However, it's definitely been on my mind. I've definitely had conversations with people who have ideas for episodes that I think are fantastic. But coupled with the issues that I probably won't detail just because they're personal and I don't feel like telling y'all, has also been just, how do I say this? I don't want to say a lack of motivation, but I've been impacted by some things that I've seen recently, just in society in general, that kind of make me, or have kind of made me do a couple of things. One, pause and kind of take a step back and reevaluate how I want to approach the podcast space. And two, just personally, how I want to experience the world of like politics and whatever associated ideologies. But it's difficult, right? Because you grapple with different things. For example, I'm a person who's had the experience that a majority of the things that I've accomplished or gained or been successful at have come by way of, I don't want to say pulling myself up by my bootstraps, but that's part of it. But they haven't come much in the way of being affirmed for the things that I'm choosing to do, or the things or ways that I choose to be or behave in my life, either be it professionally, socially, whatever. And so I've had some difficulty kind of processing how I fit into those things and how I fit into that space. Because the last thing that I want to do is to be unclear about my message. And overall, the message, although we talk about a myriad of different issues and subject matter on the podcast, but I never want people to mistake my intent for creating this podcast, and that is and shall remain to be to promote the promises felt, received, and acquired by those who exercise 100% recovery. My journey in and out and in and out and in and out, and then finally into recovery for a sustained period of over 6 years now. What that road looked like emotionally, spiritually, socially, how I got here, some of the roadblocks, some of the hurdles, so that other people facing those may be able to, like, their choices may be better informed, and they may not make some of the mistakes that I did. They might still, but you know, the point is still the same, to keep the message precise and clear. But circling back, what I've seen a bit lately, and it could have a lot to do with like the algorithm, my personal algorithm on social media, or just kind of like the natural ebbs and flows of life, and how you kind of like float in and out of different spheres of context and stuff like that. But I've seen that there's a troublesome expectation that I think that I've observed in people. And that expectation is that simply existing as whatever, or choosing whatever. I'll say it like this. No one, and myself included, but no one has the right to be affirmed for things that they choose to do with themselves, their bodies, their time, etc. How they choose to experience and express themselves into the world. Nobody, including me, and all of the people that I love more than myself. Does that mean that this affirmation and acknowledgement isn't going to happen? Of course not. And of course it's going to happen. It happens all the time. It's a part of polite society. It's kind of one of those things that we do. One, it makes people feel incredible about the things that they're doing. Generally, hopefully generally they're things that are positive and don't work expressly against their best interest or the best interest of others, in furtherance of their own hedonistic impulses and desires. But that problematic piece is that when it doesn't happen, that there's an expectation that it's somehow a right when it's not. It is absolutely not. And that's a reality for many people. Once we get, it's a reality for everyone, but some of us live a more stark reality in that way. It's more apparent to us for longer periods of time in our lives than just coming to this realization as adults when we get out into the messy and murky world, and sometimes it can be unkind and we're not affirmed for what we perceive to be the fantastic and phenomenal work that we do on ourselves or in community, whatever, doesn't matter. That, along with this expectation now that hard work, dedication, routine, and a strong will and commitment to be successful and be an active participant in your life is synonymous with a positive outcome, when that's not the case. Same principle. Will it happen? Of course. Is it a pretty reliable thing to think that, hey, A on B equals C? In a lot of ways, in a lot of contexts, absolutely. Like, you go to work and you do a good job, even if you do a mediocre job, you can still expect to get a paycheck for the hours that you went in and performed your work duties. However, using bodybuilding as an easy to reach example, for my first show, I did well, placed top 5 in my first show, and I worked my ass off, really, really worked myself hard, committed everything. But I placed top 5. I got 5th place in my first show. My second show, I came in bigger and leaner, and I did a lot better in that show, but I still didn't win the show overall. So as an example, again, hard work, dedication, commitment, and results, great results. I got great results. Meaning that I had a pretty awesome physique to display and compete with up against other great athletes. Doesn't mean that I'm going to win. That's part of the fun, right? That's part of the thing. I work hard. I get to go and, test myself against all these other powerful and great people and, see what shakes out at the end. But there's this idea that just because I've done that, just because I've sacrificed so much, that I deserve, I have a right to the outcome that I want. That's not how it goes. You do have, however, the right to bust your ass for the life that you believe you deserve and that you can build for yourself. You have the right to do that. Other things have a say in how that goes. If you're spiritual in nature, I believe that our higher power has a say in how a lot of that stuff goes. Also, society. What do I mean? Well, you could go out for that job, work your butt off, work your tail to get there. You may not get the promotion, right? That's an integral piece of the puzzle in your mind for this picture of success that you painted. May not work out. It's just how that goes. So anyway, been dealing with some thoughts around that and how internally I reconcile my approach to life and experience with people and the systems and stuff that I operate within. And I don't just mean professionally, I mean in total. And how because where I'm going with this is at the end of the day, this last point, at the end of the day, I think that it is pretty important to align with all of it, right? But it's pretty important in a healthy and reasonably minded person to align with not just God's promptings that he places on your heart, but also your own. So what I mean by that is, and not just an opinion, not just a belief, but something that is rooted in experience, real world fact that's not subjective. You cannot, as a person who's wired the way that I am, you cannot expect to diminish your true self to fit in with like the status quo or the hive mind. And that's a great thing about being an activist is, you're not expected to do that. So I have some relief in that area, but there's still things, right? Like, no matter what, unless you build something of your own, you're always beholden to a script and you're beholden to a narrative. And now it may be in certain circumstances more strictly enforced depending on the relationship or the dynamic, but the overall point is you have to be able to find and define your true north, because at the end of the day, and what I mean by the end of the day, at the end of your life, and this is important to me, I don't know if it is for other people, but this is more important to me than I think like any desire that I might have about being significant in some way, making a difference in some way, having a legacy of sorts that, that speaks to the kind of person and integrity that I have. More important, I think, is being able to look back and say, I didn't diminish myself for the sake of preserving the hive mind agenda. And I don't mean like, I walk to the beat of my own drum. I'm really talking about like centering your energy, of which you have a finite amount, and understanding that no matter where you spend it, once you spend it, it is spent. It is gone. You don't get that back. There are no do-overs. So it's very important to spend it wisely. The last thing that I would want to do ahead of everything else is look back at my life and be like, man, I never really got an opportunity to live it. How sad and tragic would that be? Because as a leader, and as if you're a parent, you're a leader, absolutely. So as a leader and as an example, it is your job to demonstrate to your kids what it actually means to live, and what it actually means to be of service, and what it actually means to covet and protect your energy in this experience. Because so far as I know, we only get one. And if it is trapped behind or subdued or laden down by expectations, especially the expectations of others, not sure altogether how much living we're doing, man. And I personally feel a higher sense of urgency that way, because I'm not unique in this, but I've wasted a lot of time. Like, you can't really hold me to, like, call me to task for, the time I wasted as a child and adolescent. But in my adult life, that's on me. That is all on me. When I became a man, the things that weren't my fault still weren't my fault, but now they're my responsibility, because I'm expected to deal with them as effectively or however I think that I might be able to, and get it together. That's been my experience. I can't speak directly to the experiences of others. But if we're not doing that, what we're doing is we're laying a blueprint for our kids to fall in lockstep with the same patterns, the same needlessly self-deprecating and oppressive patterns. And I don't mean like, hey man, be free. Da, 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 da. Of course, man. We live in a civilized or polite society, according to most metrics here in the United States. Yeah, man, you can't exist on an island. You need society to be successful. That's kind of how that works. How else would you gauge success if you were living on an island by yourself? You wouldn't. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everyone should be entrepreneurs and not have a boss, etc. But there must be a way that you cleave that part of your life from the rest of it. And there must be a way that you can kind of reconcile that balance of energy and maintain a sense of identity and a sense of self. You see it all the time, man. And I've said this for years. And this is one of the ways that I identify quickly the people who are probably most unhappy in their personal lives in whatever way. Is it 100%? Is it a 100% science? No. But I've been pretty right with it so far. It's just kind of one of those educated guesses. But I've said this for years. Those of us who are the most approachable, those of us who seem to be the most friendly, who are everywhere. Everybody likes them, maybe not all the time, but generally and overall they do. They're polite, they're funny, they always got polite things to say. They never ever cross word, they hardly ever disagree, and when they do, it's very polite and sweet and nice. Trust me, we're all cut from the same, like we have our idiosyncratic differences for sure, and they're informed of some of the other things, like the training that we get in the home and culturally. They make up a huge degree of variance in how we present to the world. But I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you, test it out. Those people that I just described, more often than not, are miserable in their actual lives. Miserable. Now, I'm not saying that people should air their dirty laundry all the time. What I'm saying is you don't have to put on that social veneer to be accepted and to have a seat at the table. You can garner respect. You can still have love. You can still have great relationships. And I posit that the ones that you do have, the relationships that you do have, those are going to be more genuine. Because what is going to happen, and I'm telling you this because I see it so often just in my personal experience, is those people that I've described, not 100% science, but there's always, you'll see it. You'll see little chinks in the arm. You're like, oh shit. Okay, well you do get angry. And that's okay. You can get angry in public settings. It's not okay to become abusive in public settings. But it's okay to be angry. It's okay to express anger. It's okay to express disapproval. It's okay to express grievances. It's okay to say no. It's okay to disagree. You don't have to agree all of the time. You can be yourself. And some of these things, they're survival mechanisms, right? And what you'll see is coupled with that agreeableness, a lot of the time will be a very, I'm going to say this, I'll just say it, a very masterful manipulator is what you're going to see. and maybe they don't have a lot of the nice traits. Some people are just con people, and you can see them coming a mile away. But some people are a little harder to see coming. until you spend some time with them, and then you see, oh wow, you literally have a different personality for every peer group that you experience. Now, that's not to say that I don't behave a bit more comfortably around my family versus the people that I work with. Of course, they're not gonna. Of course, but I mean, if it's like in stark contrast, like you literally change the way that you talk, like you use a really subdued and quiet voice that people have to strain and hear around certain people. That's manipulation, because it's not, and if that's not who you genuinely are, that's manipulation. That's lying. Who has the energy to do that all of the time? I certainly don't. Anyway, kind of got off the rails there, but overall point is, there's a disconnect. And it's important to, again, center your energy, spend it wisely, because you never get it back. And at the end of the day, like I said, I would hate to be, 75, 80 years old, looking back on my life and have this feeling of like, man, I wish I would have lived more authentically. Because trust me, I do have, and this is another one of the things I've been dealing with, is I do struggle with feeling like, man, I'll just come out and say it. I wish that I didn't see the fuckery that abounds in the world. I wish that I didn't see the bullshit that people pull. I wish that I didn't see the fake, disingenuous way that people operate when they smile in your face and they fucking drag you through the mud behind your back like a little piece of shit. I hate that I see it. I hate that I observe it. I really, really hate it. Because it starts to make you question sometimes, like, holy man, either I'm seriously fucked up, like, and I don't see it, and that's a problem, or more of the people that I experience in the world are fucking seriously fucked up and I didn't see it. Or probably a healthy mix of both. I just know that I've lately anyway I've had some experiences that were really, really, really disappointing. Because one thing I don't do, and I do this on purpose. One thing that no one can say about me is that I run around and I gossip about people, that I talk about people behind their backs. I don't do that. I do that for that reason, and also I don't do that because I don't want people to feel like they can come to me with gossip. And it's worked really, really well for me in my life, professionally and personally. People don't call me to talk shit about other people. But what happens, though, is that just that alone, not being a gossip, that will isolate you because people feel like they cannot trust you if you're not willing to bash other people behind their backs, which I simply don't do. I have some hard and fast rules, really hard and fast rules. I don't talk shit about people behind their backs. I mean, okay, that's probably not entirely true. I talk shit to my wife. That's about it. But it's, I don't know. I think that that's pretty normal to kind of process with your significant other. But what I don't do, hard and fast rules, is I don't talk shit to anyone in my peer group about other people in my peer group, be it professionally or socially, period. I'm not going to do it. Also, I don't talk about my relationship or my wife to anyone other than my wife. I just don't do it. I don't do it. It's hard and fast rule. Those two things saved me a lot of fucking grief. They saved me a lot of fucking grief. But anyway, that has been one of the things that, not that specifically, but that kind of realm has been something that I've really kind of struggled with, because I've been really disappointed. And I've experienced this before in life, where when you're yourself and you're genuine about something, and takers recognize givers. So you're bound to run into people who are going to pretend to speak the same language as you. And even if they do, there may be something that they just don't like about you. So they're either going to withhold information from you and gatekeep. They're going to kind of malign you, socially, and it doesn't even, most master manipulators, they won't come out and just be like, yeah, they're a piece of shit. They'll do stuff like, if your name comes up, they'll just do shit like, something like that. And they're just like, no comment, something like that. Just to, make people feel uncomfortable about being cool with you, right? It's how they kind of like plant these seeds. And if you become the problem in their mind, then they're going to fucking do something about it. But anyway, I've kind of had these experiences lately where I've been really disappointed in people that I thought that I could count on. And it turns out that when push comes to shove, they're just as captured by social politics and bureaucracy as anyone else. And I mean, honestly, I can't blame them. It's not the luxury of people who are essentially paycheck workers or people who aren't, rich. Like, it's not a luxury of people like us to just like throw ourselves on our, on our sword at every single time, right? Like, I guess there's, some strategy and whatever. Maybe I just live too much of a poetic and romantic life to understand what's really going on. Or I just don't fucking play games. And I've seen a lot of game playing lately, and it's just really hard for me. That's something that's always been really hard for me. Even when I was like sick in an active addiction, I wasn't like, I've never been like con man, hustly, super like maple syrup smile and just always got the slickest shit to say. Like, I like super polished. No, I've always been really rough around the edges, fuck a lot of shit up, probably fuck up more shit than I get right, to be honest with you. But I found that sticking closer to who I am kind of reduces, well, it doesn't kind of, it reduces that internal battle. And I'm telling you, it's real. And straight up, I'll be honest with you, one of the things that helped me get clean and stay sober was making sure that wasn't a battle I had to fight anymore. Right? So accepting myself for the good, the bad, the ugly, and just having that daily connection with gratitude helps me stay clean. Plus, the fucking ugly and hateful, painful memories that I have from being impacted by the child welfare system. What I mean when I say that is having my kids removed from my care and having to go through that process. What some people I think understand the value of hard work. But when I was in prison, there was this sentiment of shared by people who, at whatever point in their lives or experience with the system, that everyone should have to start their sentence in close custody. Close custody, for those who don't know, is the strictest security custody level in prison, at least in Washington. So it goes close, medium, minimum. The idea behind everyone having to go to close custody first is that's where you're going to really learn what respect means in prison. And I'm telling you right now, if you think you have an idea and you've never been, you don't have a fucking clue. You have not a clue. I've seen people get mollywopped over what on the street would be considered the most benign form of disrespect. And I'm talking about knocked out and face pretty much caved in over the slightest disrespect. One, I'm not even going to go into the story, but anyway, I was in a meeting the other day and with some friends, and I shared this point and this feeling that I've had, and it was basically like life was not easier, but it was pretty simple when I wasn't living right, if that makes any sense. Because the feeling that I have, and not to say that I have any ideas about like getting physical with people or being violent, but you see a lot of the same like shitty tactics and like manipulation and social leveraging and like bureaucratic pole vaulting. Excuse me. Can't believe I just did that. You see a lot of that same, well, it feels similar to the stuff that I experienced in my previous life, right? In and out of jail, prison, watching these things. However, the people who did that then, they either understood the consequences and didn't care, or thought that they were just too bad to be, they were above reproach in that way. They were like too bad to like really experience any of the more significant consequences of their choices then. But I'm telling you right now, some of the shit that I see people doing, like triangulating and politicking professionally, is wild. And I'm like, man, this is such a crazy juxtaposition, because in my old life, that kind of behavior is really dangerous for people unless you're a powerful person. That could get you hurt really, really bad. Like really, really bad. But there are really no consequences, for, people who do this stuff in life outside of that. It's just crazy, man. Thinking like just watching people like, man, the idea, if you had to go to close custody first, you would not be acting like that. And if you knew how serious life could get for you for doing shit like you're doing, I wonder if you would continue to do it. But that's just the nature of life, right? Like, people are going to do shit they get away with. It's just kind of how it goes. Anyway. It's tough, man. It's tough, and switching gears a little bit, some of the stuff that I've been dealing with away from that, has really impacted like my energy levels and motivation, and, has been otherwise extremely distracting. So it's been really difficult to lock in and commit to a podcast, even a podcast a week, which really sucks. But this just felt really good. This felt really good. So, and that's a sign that's the stuff that I was dealing with is improving, at least a bit. So that feels good. I was going to talk a bit about bodybuilding, but I don't think I'm ready to start talking about that yet. I will say that at least for this year, competing is off of the table. Got to get some stuff right. So not going to be competing this year. That was a really, really hard choice. Just because I felt like I had some really good momentum, and coming into this season, I was gonna really. I feel like I was on track to win my first show, win my first overall. But hey, man, not to say that it hasn't impacted me pretty heavily, but it, as the title says, man, it bees like that. And it does. It bees like that. I mean, I could have probably pushed through. I don't want to know what the consequences on the other side of that might have been. So I got people who depend on me to be accessible and to be healthy. So that's the goal. That's what we're doing. We're moving in that direction. And, if it's not bodybuilding, I say goodbye. I regretfully say goodbye to that. I'll always train, but I'll end up doing something else badass. You know what I'm saying? I'll do something else badass because I have to have that kind of challenge in my life daily to keep me motivated. So that's where that is. But everything else, man, as a practical thing, overall things are well. Things are well, moving in a positive direction. I have been experiencing the things that I've outlined. Some of that, I just needed to vent a little bit, not aimed directly at any group of people or person in particular, But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you sound like one of those people I described, you're probably a piece of shit. Just keeping it a buck with you. You know what I mean? Just keeping it a buck with you. But that's not to say that, and I don't mean any one of those things in particular. I mean, just kind of like that whole package. Y'all know who I'm talking about. You know at least one of them. You know what I mean? You know at least one of them. I do. They drive me fucking crazy. You know? They drive me crazy. But I have this really good theory about that. You know? Kind of like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I just leave them alone. I give them 50 feet. I limit my interaction with these kind of people as much as possible because I know internally the kind of impact they're going to have on me because I have to be appropriate, you know, even socially. You know what I mean? It's not in the cards. I don't see myself, you know, telling people off. One, what's it going to do? Is it going to feel good in the moment? Maybe. But is it going to change their mind? Not likely. It'll probably, more than anything else, embolden them to be more of that piece of shit that they already are. So my theory is, you know, deal with it in manageable doses that are required. And other than that, I feel like the universe has a very, very effective way of giving people their due. You know, you cannot be a negative person, and trust me, I know this firsthand. You cannot be a negative person and manipulate and, you know, just be, you know, a real POS and think that there are going to never be any consequences. You're going to pay for it in some way, shape, or form. Some way, shape, or form. Either your life's going to be hell, and that's how you kind of compensate and make up for it. Somewhere, somehow, you're being impacted by your choices, and you probably are too stupid or too arrogant to put it together. You know what I'm saying? That happened to me. But anyway, I'm going to get up out of here, man. I got stuff to do. Y'all bothering me and taking up my time. But if you didn't do it on the way in, think about doing it on the way out. Hit that like, subscribe, and post notification bell. And hell, even share the podcast episode with your friends. Tell everybody about it. Peace, y'all.